This isn't the only ragwort. As you can see, there are plants of ragwort behind me. Something unusual about the ragwort, at least here in Sherwood Forest this year. Something I've not known before, and it's something which is still a surprise despite the lack of insects. Almost like a summer's day. Sun is out, it's pleasantly warm, some cumulus clouds in the sky, and a gentle breeze. And some flowers too. The flowers of the much maligned and much hated ragwort. It's an overly hated plant. One of those things that people read something or hear something about it and just assume that what they've heard and read about it is factually true. And so people will actively, continually pull out ragwort plants. And yet, as much as it is hated, this beautiful yellow flowering plant is a vital nectar source. I've mentioned it before, but certain plants are vital nectar sources, especially in a place like Sherwood Forest, which is known to be botanically poor. But ragwort's having a good year. Having a good year in the fact that it's being left alone. It's being left alone by the fact that there's no insects visiting it. I walked past hundreds of these plants and there isn't an insect on them. Not even diptera. There's barely any hoverflies. Everyone's talking about the lack of butterflies, which there is. We all know that now. And everything will come back again in the course of the next few years. But for there to be a lack of diptera, I think is unheard of. But it's not just the diptera that's lacking on ragwort. It's something else. Something orange and black that eats it. And that's the caterpillars of the Cinnabar moth. Usually I could walk up through Clipsnell Quarter all the way down to Thinghow, and on every single ragwort plant, what leaves remain on it will have been eaten or will be being eaten by the caterpillars of the Cinnabar moth. I know of one lot of Cinnabar larvae at the moment, and on my way around I'll be dropping in and having a look, but normally they would be everywhere. Cinnabar's a beautiful moth, pink and black, generally with pink hind wings. A lot of people think when they see one fluttering around in the daytime that it's a butterfly, but it's a moth, a beautiful moth. And the caterpillars are equally as beautiful, but don't eat them because they're very poisonous. And the fact that this plant is rather toxic, at least to horses, is the main fact that people don't like it. But you shouldn't go around eating ragwort, especially people. And I believe that ragwort's only actually toxic when it's in its dried state. But in a site like Sherwood Forest here, this is a vital source, a vital late season source of nectar. A few people still walk around and pull it out. Someone did the other day. They pulled a number of these out. But they really shouldn't, because it's been growing here in Sherwood for years, but it's never filled all the sides of the forest tracks. You don't even get any thick patches of ragwort growing. It often grows singly like this, and like others are lining the side of the track below me. But before pulling it out, think about its usefulness for insects. Although this year It seems to have been made redundant. It's out of a job. Never known a year like it. While we're on the subject of somewhat redundant plants in 2024, here's another one. Doesn't look much, does it? And in all honesty, you wouldn't grow it in a garden, you wouldn't give it garden room, but for insects, this is another vital nectar source, and it's a great attractant to wasps, which is probably another reason why no one would want to grow it in their gardens. Wasps love this, especially the later we get into the summer and into the autumn. Any flowers of this plant that are still going will be adorned with hungry wasps. And this is figwort. Grows usually in damp places, but especially at the sides of rivers and streams and ponds. It has nothing really going for it other than these rather lovely, quite unique little flowers, which don't look much at all. Hardly looks as if the flower can be asked to open up, to be honest. But the wasps and hoverflies, to a degree, love it. But there's something else that's missing. When did you last see a wasp this year? I've seen one worker a couple of weeks ago in the garden briefly. But it was a good year, good spring for queens. Lots of queens again. Similar situation to bumblebees, but there were lots of queens. But colony foundation seems to have been pretty much non-existent. Any colonies that were started haven't made it. I've never known a year like it, so we're all going on about butterflies and flies and everything else, but there is a big lack of wasps. Now, most people probably won't be bothered about wasps. They won't give a toss that we haven't got any wasps, but wasps are incredibly useful insects. Everybody loves a bumblebee because they're nice, furry and cuddly, but they can still sting you, and are still likely to sting you as much as a wasp will. The notion that wasps sting you for no apparent reason is nonsense. They only sting when they feel threatened, usually when someone's doing that, or tugging one out of the hair. Wasps otherwise don't want to sting anybody, and they're a vital component in the grand scheme of things, wasps. But trying to get that word over and give wasps a good publicity is very difficult to a public that refuses to believe it, no matter what you say how good wasps are. But they are. They're every bit as good pollinators and useful pollinators as bees and bumblebees and other insects. Yet we hate them. And I think it's the colouring. It's the yellow and black stripes. If they were covered in a nice fur, we'd probably love them like we do bumblebees. But 2024 is a bad year for wasps. Well, it looks like I'm just in time to film these caterpillars, because only a few days ago there were numerous full-grown or near full-grown larvae like this one. There are now 2, and the plant has barely been defoliated at all. Very little leaf damage. And these are the only ones that I've found. I've walked a large area today, checked every ragwort plant around the route that I've taken, and these have been the only ones that I've seen as I've gone round. And although some have obviously pupated, we're left with just 2. And that's exceptional, because Normally, as I've mentioned, every ragwort plant would have larvae on it, and there's usually that many larvae that they soon defoliate the ragwort plant and then have to go wandering, so you'll find them wandering the forest tracks and paths in the search for just a leaf to feed on. No such trouble in 2024.